In recent years, Europe has faced increasing challenges related to immigration, security and cultural integration. Nigel Farage, a prominent British politician, has been vocal about his stance on these issues, particularly regarding Islam. Farage argues that a firm anti-Islam stance is essential for Europe's future, a view that has sparked significant debate and controversy. Nigel Farage, known for his leadership in the Brexit campaign, has long been a polarising figure in British and European politics. His views on immigration and Islam have made headlines, resonating with many who are concerned about the cultural and security implications of increasing Muslim populations in. We must take control of our borders and ensure that those who come to our country share our values and respect our way of life, says Farage. Farage's stance is rooted in concerns over security and cultural preservation. Europe has witnessed several terror attacks in recent years, often linked to extremist ideologies. Farage argues that unchecked immigration from predominantly Muslim countries poses a significant risk to European societies. We cannot ignore the reality that many of the terror attacks we've seen in Europe have been perpetrated by individuals with radical Islamic beliefs.
Campaigner.
Beyond security, Farage emphasises the cultural impact of immigration. He warns that the rise of Islamic communities could undermine traditional European values and societal norms. This viewpoint has found support among those who fear the erosion of national identities. We must protect our cultural heritage and ensure that newcomers integrate fully into our society, rather than creating parallel communities with conflicting values, Farage asserts. Governments across Europe have responded to these concerns with various policies aimed at controlling immigration and combating extremism. In the UK, measures such as scrutinising visas and deporting individuals promoting hate speech have been implemented, drawing both praise and criticism. Our primary responsibility is to protect the safety and security of our citizens. We will take all necessary measures to prevent extremism and ensure community harmony, says Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer.
Do you support the government's proposal for a national service?
They don't support it either. It's a joke, isn't it? I mean, look, what you do, you get a focus group of half a dozen reform voters in a room, and the chairman says, now, what about national service? Oh, I think it's a very good idea. The rest say, yeah, actually, not a bad idea. Oh, policy. So, I mean, look, when you're a weak leader, and Sunak is not a leader in any way at all, you're a follower. So you follow what the focus groups say, and you say, by doing this, I can attack the reform vote. That's what it's all about. And look, it's totally impractical. The army has shrunk from 100,000 to 75,000 in 14 years of conservatism. And most interesting, and I'm afraid I found some of the recent surveys saying that 46% of British Muslims support Hamas, support a terrorist organisation that is prescribed in this country. So we've been, and what's interesting is that this Prime Minister is building up far more of that population than anybody before in history.
Farage's stance has not been without controversy. Critics argue that his views fuel Islamophobia and division, undermining efforts towards multicultural integration. Human rights organisations caution against policies that may alienate immigrant communities and infringe on civil liberties. Targeting specific religious groups and promoting an anti-Islam agenda only serves to deepen societal divides and foster discrimination, warns a human rights activist. As Europe continues to grapple with these complex issues, the debate over immigration and Islam remains deeply contentious. Farage and his supporters believe that a strong stance is necessary to preserve Europe's security and cultural identity. However, finding a balance between protection and integration remains a critical challenge for policymakers. We must not shy away from difficult conversations. The future of Europe depends on our ability to address these issues head-on, Farage concludes.
Whilst I was away in America, of course, we had a big set of elections that took place last Thursday. Quite why it takes until Saturday night to count them all, I have absolutely no idea. What is the upshot of it all? Well, the Conservatives did pretty much as badly as expected, down by nearly 500 council seats, which was pretty much what was expected. They lost nearly 50% of the seats that they held prior to the election. Why? Well, in the seats where Reform stood, a significant number are going to Reform, and we certainly saw that in the Blackpool South by-election, with Reform coming just 117 votes behind the Conservatives, albeit with Labour way out in front. There are also Conservatives going back to Labour. These are the old red wall voters, Brexiteer red wall voters going back to the Labour Party, but also a lot of Conservatives simply staying at home. They're pretty disgusted with the last 14 years. For Labour, on the face of it, well, they won nearly all of the mayoral races, bar one. Ben Houchen managed to hang on up in Teesside, albeit with a vote share that was down by 20%. And they'll certainly be pleased to have won the West Midlands from the Conservatives' Andy Street. So a good night for Labour, but not exactly overwhelming. Didn't exactly feel like Tony Blair in 1997. As for Reform, well, they only stood in 15% of seats. I think what they did prove is they don't have much of a machine on the ground, but that the polls are right. Because across the 300 seats in which they stood, they averaged 12%, with, as I say, nearly 17% in Blackpool South. So there is a Reform vote there. Of that, there's no doubt. But to me, the really big feature, well, I've been talking about it for months on this show, the growth of sectarian politics. I said to all of you that George Galloway's win in that Rochdale by-election was not a one-off. Let's have a look at some of the scenes that we witnessed last Thursday night into Friday.
Raise the voice of Palestine! Allahu Akbar!
I'm going to tell you something here. This is a clear message to Starmer. Bradford has rejected Labour. It's rejected Zionism. And this is a message to you, Nash Shah and Imran Hussein. We are coming for you in the general election. Anyone that stands with Zionism, we're coming after you. Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
Well, anyone that supports Zionism, they are coming to get. I hope that just means in electoral terms, although I'm not, given the tone of that gentleman's manner, entirely sure. And let's see some of the scenes of celebration. And this is what you see everywhere. You know, there were about 40 council seats won by people standing on a Gaza agenda. Some stood for the Green Party, some stood for Galloway, some stood as independents. And this all took place in areas that are Muslim-majority wards. If that's not a sectarian vote, I don't know what is. How many women can you see in that picture? Absolutely none. And we now go to Burnley, and just watch this in Burnley, please. Well, what can you say? This is our country in 2024. This is the diversity agenda. Is this what you intended, Peter Mandelson? You said you wanted to open up, you wanted to change the country. Well, you did it with mass immigration. But don't think the Tories get off on this one. Do you know, in 2023, 250,000 people settled in this country from the Indian subcontinent. And what you can see is that if people come in very, very large numbers, they bring their culture with them. And what we're witnessing with this growth of sectarian politics.
The discourse surrounding Islam and immigration in Europe is emblematic of broader global challenges. As nations strive to balance security, cultural preservation and human rights, the path forward requires careful consideration and dialogue. Nigel Farage's call for an anti-Islam stance may resonate with some, but the broader European community must navigate these waters with both caution and courage. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and for more content like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel.